Solomon had 4 treasuries. Your bank has 1 checking account. 3,000 years ago, the wealthiest king in recorded history managed the equivalent of $2 trillion a year. 1 Kings chapter 4 describes an economic infrastructure so precise that 12 separate districts each funded 1 month of national provision. Nothing was pooled, nothing was mixed. Every resource had a room, a purpose, a wall between it and everything else. Ryan is 39, senior accountant in Denver. He manages budgets for a living, other people's budgets. His own household runs on 1 checking account. Salary in, bills out, whatever survives gets spent by the 22nd of the month. He earns $112,000 a year and cannot explain where $3,200 went last month. By the end of this video, you will know the 4-vault treasury system Solomon used to build generational wealth, and which vault 83% of Americans have never built at all. But here is the part most people read right past in 1 Kings chapter 4. Solomon did not invent a budget. He built an architecture. Solomon wrote over 3,000 Proverbs. The book of Proverbs, as we have it, contains roughly 800 verses, less than a third of what he actually produced. Most people read those verses as moral advice. Be honest, work hard, fear God, but read them again through the lens of a man running a $2 trillion a year empire, and something different appears. Proverbs is not a devotional. It is an operating manual for money. Every verse about the sluggard is a warning about operational inefficiency. Every verse about the ant is a lesson in reserve architecture. Every verse about the fool gulping down his resources is a diagnostic for the single account household that treats income like a river with no dam. Solomon's treasury was not 1 room. According to the construction records in 1 Kings and 2 Chronicles, his economic system had distinct compartments. Provision for daily operations, reserves for crisis, fleets for long-term growth, and storehouses scattered across the kingdom for generational continuity. 4 functions, 4 separations, 4 vaults. The modern American household has Venmo, Zelle, Autopay, 3 streaming services, and 1 checking account absorbing all of it. That is not a system, that is a funnel with no bottom. The first vault is the one nobody builds, and it is the reason the other 3 collapse. Proverbs 21, verse 20. The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. Solomon separated the concept of storing from the concept of spending at the sentence level. 2 verbs, 2 outcomes, 2 kinds of people. The wise store, fools gulp, and the difference is not income, it is architecture. Vault 1 is the foundation stone. In Solomon's temple, nothing was built until the foundation stones were cut, measured, and set. 1 Kings chapter 5 records that 80,000 stonecutters worked in the hills before a single wall went up. The foundation came first. Everything else sat on top of it. In modern terms, Vault 1 is your emergency reserve, a separate, untouchable account holding 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, not in your checking, not mentally earmarked, physically separated. The Bankrate Emergency Fund Survey found that roughly 56% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency from savings. Not because they do not earn enough, because the money sits in the same pool as groceries, gas, and impulse purchases. It gets gulped. Exactly the way Solomon described it 3,000 years ago. Ryan knew this intellectually. He is an accountant. He understood reserves. But his own household had no foundation stone, just 1 account doing everything. When his car needed a $1,400 repair in February, he put it on a credit card, an accountant, financing a car repair, because the architecture did not exist. Vault 1 is not about discipline, it is about separation. The money has to live somewhere. Your daily spending cannot reach it. Solomon did not store olive oil in the kitchen. He stored it in a vault. Ryan opened a separate high-yield account on a Tuesday night. Took 11 minutes. What happened to his next 3 paychecks changed his entire financial posture. Proverbs 27, verse 23. Be sure you know the condition of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds. Solomon did not run his kingdom from a single supply room. 1 Kings chapter 4, verses 27 and 28 describe 12 administrative districts, each assigned to feed the royal household for 1 month. 12 managers. 12 rotations, no single point of failure. The load was distributed, tracked, and accountable. Vault 2 is the daily bread room, your operating account for monthly living expenses, mortgage, groceries, utilities, gas, the non-negotiable cost of being alive in America. Here is where most households bleed without knowing it. The Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditure Survey shows the average American household spends over $72,000 a year. But when researchers at the National Endowment for Financial Education surveyed adults about their spending, the majority could not estimate their monthly expenses within $500. You cannot manage flocks you have not counted. Gloria is 56, recently divorced after 28 years. Her husband handled every bill, every account, every tax return. For the first time in 3 decades, she is looking at her own financial life, and she has no idea what she spends. Everything came from one joint account that no longer exists. She does not need investment advice. She needs Vault 2, a dedicated operating account with a fixed monthly number that she tracks, reviews, and owns. Solomon assigned 12 men to track provision for 12 months. Gloria needs to assign herself one task: know the number. That is the beginning of stewardship in the ancient wealth tradition. Not earning more, knowing what you have. If you have ever looked at your bank balance on the 28th of the month and whispered, "Where did it all go?" Solomon built this vault for you. Ecclesiastes 11, verse 1. Cast your bread upon the waters, for after many days you will find it again. Solomon's trading fleet sailed from Ezion-Geber on the Red Sea to a distant land called Ophir. 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 22 says the ships returned every 3 years carrying gold, silver, ivory, and rare goods. 3 years. Solomon committed resources to the open water and waited 36 months for the return. That is not speculation. That is patient, structured deployment of surplus into a vehicle designed for long-term growth. And it only worked because Vaults 1 and 2 were already funded. The fleet did not sail with the grocery money. Vault 3 is the merchant fleet, long-term investment accounts, a 401k, an IRA, a brokerage account. Money you send out knowing it will not come back for years, possibly decades. The Vanguard How America Saves report shows that the average 401k contribution rate sits around 7% of salary. The recommended target for most retirement planning models is 15%. The gap is not always about affordability, it is about sequence. People try to invest from the same account they eat from. The bread and the fleet share the same dock. So when rent is due, the fleet never sails. Ryan had $85,000 in his 401k, contributing just enough to get the company match, 6%. He knew he should do more. Every financial article he read said the same thing. But every time he considered increasing the contribution, he looked at his checking balance and thought, not this month. The problem was never his income. The problem was the absence of Vaults 1 and 2. Without a funded foundation stone and a defined operating budget, Vault 3 will always feel like a luxury. Solomon funded the fleet after the granaries were full. That sequence is not optional. Most financial advice says start investing as early as possible. Solomon said something different. Start containing first. Investing without containment is loading a ship with cargo and forgetting to build the hull. If Solomon's treasury system worked for a kingdom, generating the equivalent of $2 trillion a year, why does nobody teach a 4-vault structure in a single personal finance class in America? Proverbs 13, verse 22. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, not children, children's children. Solomon specified 2 generations forward. That is not a savings account. That is an architecture designed to outlive you. Second Chronicles chapter 8 describes Solomon's building projects beyond the temple. Store cities for supplies, cities for chariots, cities for horses. He did not concentrate wealth in Jerusalem. He distributed it across a geography so wide that no single disruption could empty the system. Vault 4 is the Storehouse of Generations, assets earmarked specifically for transfer. A 529 college savings plan, a life insurance policy, a trust, an estate plan. Resources that are not yours to spend. They belong to the next line. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances shows that the median inheritance received by American households is approximately $69,000. But the median net worth of Americans aged 55 to 64 is roughly $364,000. The gap between what people accumulate and what they transfer reveals a structural problem. Wealth gets consumed in the final decades, rather than preserved in a separate vault. Gloria, the 56-year-old divorcee from Vault 2, asked Ryan's wife a question at a neighborhood cookout. She said, "I spent 30 years building a life with someone. I have nothing earmarked for my grandchildren. Is it too late? It is not. But it requires a vault, a container that is legally and structurally separated from Vaults 1, 2, and 3. Money that sits in a general account does not survive medical bills, long-term care costs, or the slow erosion of late-life spending. Money that sits in a 529 or a trust has walls around it." Solomon did not store generational wealth in the kitchen. He built separate cities. Remember Ryan's single checking account? 6 months after building 4 vaults, his emergency fund held 4 months of expenses. His operating budget ran on a fixed number he could recite from memory. His 401k contribution climbed to 12%. And he opened a 529 for his daughter with a $50 monthly auto transfer. Same income, different architecture. Solomon's 4-vault treasury system is not a theory. It is a sequence. Vault 1 first, always. The foundation stone before the walls. A separate reserve account funded before anything else moves. Vault 2 second. A defined operating budget. Know the number, track the number, own the number. Vault 3, only after 1 and 2 are stable. Send the fleet when the granaries are full. Vault 4 as soon as you can, because Proverbs 13 verse 22 does not say leave an inheritance if you get around to it. It says a good person does this. Present tense, active verb. The 4 vaults are not 4 budgeting categories written on a spreadsheet. They are 4 separate accounts, each with a defined purpose, each protected from the others. The ancient wealth system Solomon encoded across Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the records of First Kings was never about earning more. It was about containing what you earn so that none of it leaks, none of it gets gulped, and none of it dies with you. Ryan did not get a raise. Gloria did not win the lottery. They restructured. Same income. 4 rooms instead of 1. Here is your first move. Tonight, not tomorrow. Tonight, open 1 separate account. Label it foundation. Set up an automatic transfer of any amount from your next paycheck. $20. 50. The number does not matter yet. The separation does. Solomon did not start with $60 billion of gold in the vault. He started with the vault. If someone in your life is running their entire financial world from 1 account and wondering why nothing changes, share this with them. Sometimes the answer is not more money, it is more rooms. Next video, Solomon's system for eliminating debt in order of danger, not size. The ancient payoff sequence most financial advisors have never read. Do not miss it. Educational content only, not financial advice. We explore ancient texts as financial literature, not religious instruction. Consult a licensed financial professional before making financial decisions.